Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sigmar's finest are lined up to do battle against the fearsome Druki in these swamps of terror, as we have Way on the Empire side, and Killerino will be commanding the Dark Elves. So for the Empire forces, we do have a Spearman with the Sigmar Sons for that front line. They are going to be protecting the Silver Bullets and a pair of Great Cannons as well, looking to be trading rather well into the Dark Elf forces. And for the rest of the forces, is going to have some Knights of the Blazing Sun on one side. We have some another Knights of the Blazing Sun and Empire Knights on the right flank. A couple of Pistoliers off in the back. And for the Lord, of course, it is Karl Franz up on his Griffin, as he is going to be bringing the Reichling Runefang as well as Gal Maraz. So pretty standard kit for him, and he will be supported by a Jade Wizard with Earthblood and Regrowth. Pretty standard stuff. He will be on horseback as well to kind of keep him safe for as long as he can. Otherwise, that's going to wrap things up for the Empire side. Pretty much to just try and keep these cannons alive for as long as they can, and allow those silver bullets to fire in while their mobility sweeps up the Dark Elf forces and keeps everything else nice and safe. But for the Dark Elves, to counter this, we do have a couple of Scourge Runner chariots on both flanks, as well as a pair of Reaper Bolt Throwers with a Supreme Sorceress of Fire up in the sky, going to have both Fireball as well as Burning Head, and she's going to be up on her Dark Pegasus, so that's going to put her at a nice elevated position. It's going to help her trade or get better fireball shots into opposing artillery, though she will have to be quite careful of Karl Franz, as she doesn't really have any other air support other than the Scourge Runners. A Reaper Bolt Thrower really ain't going to be able to have any anti-air. So she is going to have to be rather careful, though she is cheap, but she is their only source of magic. For the rest of the forces, it is going to be a Dread Spear front line, going to be backed up by some Black Arc Corsairs. The Black Arc Corsairs are able to chew through Empire State troops rather effectively, while the Dread Spears there are just pretty much there to hold the line. But in the back line, we have a nice little combination of a pair of Blackguard of Nagaron with some Witch Elves in the middle. Now, the Witch Elves do have that Rampage, and they are situated in a nice little spot here. So if anything either does try and charge into the Reaper Bolt Throwers, we have the Witch Elves. And if they are able to Rampage them, you got those Blackguard right next door, and they're going to be able to sandwich anything that does try and trade very, very well in that particular instance. But that is it for the armies, so let's get right on into the meat and potatoes of the fight and get things rolling. Karl Franz going to be pushing forward now. He doesn't have a whole lot to fear as long as these Scourge Runners are nice and far, but Fireball is going to be arcing its way straight for one of these Great Cannons. Going to be going right on down. Nice connection there, and able to take out one of the artillery pieces very, very early on, as the rest of the, we have the Reaper Bolt Throwers here, going to be moving forward because they are still just out of range. As you can see now, if we look at the range of the cannons are going to be able to start singing right away here, but the Dark Elf force is going to need to push up just a bit before they are able to start trading themselves. Scourge Runners are going to be opening up right into the Knights of the Blazing Sun, going to be doing some nice little bit of damage. There are a few shots going to get obstructed by the terrain, though they will be able to kite away from these troops and trade very well in that process. And another Fireball is going to be making its way right on downtown for another artillery piece, but this time it is going to fly just a little too high, and it will be missing, hitting some spearmen, so not all for naught, but definitely would have been wishing for another nice connection into those units, trying to clean things up as quickly as they can. Well, the Bolt Throwers are going to deter these Pistoliers from getting too much closer. They do have their spread shot on here, but with Pistoliers, they don't really have a whole lot of ammunition, or armor, my bad. Armor, they only have 30 armor, so that will be doing okay damage across the board. Anything else like Empire Knights or Knights of the Blazing Sun, definitely going to want to be probably using the single shot in that regard. Well, Scourge Runners on both sides have been able to keep these the cavalry at bay. And another Fireball, and again, the Fireball does miss its mark. Unfortunate luck so far on those Fireballs. Only 1 of 3 have been able to hit, though they are able to get some nice little bit extra magic with that Arcane Conduit, as the Scourge Runners are just able to keep these Knights of Blazing Sun at bay, but they are wisely staying in the tree line here, and the Scourge Runners would be wise to change their targets, don't want to be wasting too many of their shots, and they will instead turn their attention to these Pistoliers, looking to get some nice shots into them, while the other Scourge Runner has pushed forward, and one more of the Great Cannon crew does drop here, as I believe that was a Reaper Bolt Thrower shot, and a Burning Head's going to be going in right to the Sigmar Suns, and the Empire troops are unable to get out of the way, and those Sigmar Suns are pretty much deleted off of that cast alone. So that is a very useful unbreakable unit. However, they still do have 53 models, so in Earthblood might not be the worst idea in the world to be cast on them. But that was a ton of damage to that unit, and this Supreme Sorceress of Fire is taking a ton of shots from the Pistoliers, but trying to stay forward as long as she can, gets another fireball off, and is going to be arcing its way once more down towards the artillery piece, making connection, and that is it for that Great Cannons, though the other three are still up and operational, firing away, and now Karl Franz, nothing to really fear at this point. However, those Scourge Runners taking a ton of damage from those cannons. They really need to make sure they stay on the move, but now Karl Franz is able to just freely chase the Supreme Sorceress. Now she does have more speed than him, so should be able to stay nice and free, but losing one of the Scourge Runners to that cannon fire, definitely an unfortunate loss for the Druchii. However, the Scourge Runner should be coming back, still has two of its models, and should be able to use most of his ammunition. So Witch Elves are trying to keep these Knights of Blazing Sun at bay, and especially with the threat of these Blackguard of Nigron, should be able to do so. Scourge Runners have returned, and now that Supreme Sorceress is just continuing to kind of run away as best that they can. And these Scourge Runners are going to be firing right into Karl Franz up into the sky, doing some decent damage. And Reaper Bolt Throwers once again turning their attention to the Pistoliers, trying to eliminate that mobile anti-air to kind of keep their Supreme Sorceress safe. And a Burning Head is going to be casted, going right down through, trying to catch these Pistoliers off guard. One does route away, and the other one is able to dodge. And the Supreme Sorceress just continuing to fly away for as long as she can here. Karl Franz relentless in his pursuit. And he doesn't really have a whole lot to fear here. Scourge Runners are, for the most part, busy with the cavalry on the flanks, but the Scourge Runners are now turning their attention to Karl Franz, but haven't been able to do a whole lot of considerable damage, and these Knights of Blazing Sun might be in a very bad place, and there they are. They do get rampaged into those Blackguard combination I was talking about earlier. Now, the Witch Elves, if they are able to, should try and pull out here. They don't want to be losing themselves just to one of the Knights of Blazing Sun. Those Knights of Blazing Sun are going to be taking a ton of damage, and those Blackguard are sitting nice and healthy, though the Witch Elves are going to likely be routing, though they might be able to stabilize their leadership. The rest of the Empire Cavalry, though, is going to start pressuring the other flank, as the Witch Elves and the rest of the forces are pretty much focused on that side, and Great Cannons should still be singing right now as they do continue firing away. I think they were targeting the Supreme Sorcerer, but another fireball going to be coming right on in, looking to see if it can claim itself another artillery piece, as here it kind of comes in, but it is going to land just ahead into the side of the hill there. That Great Cannon in a very nice spot, able to kind of make sure it is as protected as it possibly can be. Now, from the Reaper Bolt Throwers, that would not necessarily be the case, but they seem to have their attention focused on those Pistoliers instead, so they aren't trying to win that artillery duel in any sense of the word. And Scourge Runners, though, are just about on the end of their ammunition. And even after all of these shots trading back and forth, the balance of power is still pretty much dead even. Karl Franz has been healed back up to full. He did have an overcasted regrowth put on him, so he is nice and healthy now. And the Supreme Sorceress is definitely sitting a little scary. She doesn't want to be even trying an overcast at this point, because an overcast could very well kill her. And a cannon shot almost taking her out of the sky. Takes a nice chunk of her remaining health off, as she does fire one more fireball as she does fall to the ground. And will the shot be in vain, or will it be able to connect? And it does find its way over the hill, but unfortunately it does miss. And the Dark Elves have lost their lord, though a lot of Winds Magic was already used. It still is an unfortunate thing nonetheless. And now Karl Franz is almost going to have complete free reign at this point. The Reaper Bolt Throwers are so low on ammunition, even if they do fire directly on him, I don't think he really has a whole lot to worry about. And now in this late game, they are focusing their single shots on to these Great Cannons. At this point, though, I don't think those shots are really worth it. Earlier on, when they still had the ammunition left, that could have been a good idea. They might be able to take out, they do take out one of the artillery pieces, so that is helpful, but they're not going to be able to finish off both of those Great Cannons with what they have left, unless they are exceptionally lucky with their shots, and I don't know if they're necessarily going to be all so lucky in that regard. Though we shall see, one of them has used up the last of their ammunition, so these shots will be able to follow the same trajectory. They are able to pull off one more model, so it is down to just one more artillery piece, but the great cannons did get routed off, so maybe it is not all for naught, and they will be able to, at least for the time being, have a little bit of a reprieve, and this is going to force the Empire forward at this point. Though one of the great cannon crew has returned, so that is something. There is still 2 great cannon crews left. Unless they are able to get something around in the back. I don't know where those Scourge Runners are. They are sitting pretty low, though at this point they could try and shut those great cannons down, though there is a lot of Knights of Blazing Sun and Empire Knights here to kind of counteract that. And the last of their bolt throwers maybe trying to peel off the crew once again, but they are sitting away from the artillery pieces, so they can't target those directly. I'm only hoping to maybe kill the crew off, but there is still a potential for the Empire to use up a lot of cannon fire. It will only be with one working artillery piece, but it can definitely produce quite a bit more value with what is left. And now with these Reaper Bolt Throwers using up the last of their ammunition, they will be downgraded to just measly chaff units as they do run forward, hoping to absorb a charge if they can. But now the Empire going to be actually pulling back a bit, as the last of the ammunition is used on both sides, and the silver bullets are now going to be opening up, trying to get as much damage off onto the Blackguard of Daggerond as they can. And Karl Franz is now completely free to reign in the sky. Nothing can challenge his reign up there, and he will have his pick and choice of engagements for the rest of the fight. Great cannons, though, have returned to their crew, and in come the Scourge Runner chariots. Seeing that the Empire cavalry is otherwise occupied, should be able to finish things off. Cannon does connect with a Scourge Runner, finishing it off, so definitely getting some value here in this late game, trying to finish off that fast-moving chariot as they do charge in once again. As the rest of the fight is underway, though, the front line going to be engaging, and as long as these Blackheart Corsairs are able to damage things quickly, they should be able to push these silver bullets off, and the Witch Elves are able to rampage these Empire Knights, at least keeping one of the cavalry from coming to the assistance of the Great Cannon, as a Scourge Runner is able to get on top of them, shutting them down now once and for all. And they should be able to rout the crew off and potentially even destroy the cannon, though the cannon they are detached. They won't be targeting that cannon directly. And now Murderous Prowess is going to be popped, giving everything a nice little plus 22 charge bonus, plus 22% melee attack, 20% melee armor piercing, 15 leadership, and 18% vigor as well. And now it is going to be pretty much down to the infantry grind, and is Karl Franz going to be able to kind of cycle in and out and win those engagements, because these Blackguard is going to be something that the Empire needs to deal with, and they need to keep those silver bullets alive as long as physically possible. Scourge Runners are going to kind of peel off, trying to chase them down, knowing that that is really the biggest threat to their army here, and the Great Cannon crew is going to be able to man their cannon once again and start firing on in. But these Blackguard are pretty much the win condition for the Dark Elves. If they stay alive, Karl Franz and the Empire Cavalry isn't going to be able to do pretty much anything against them. And the Silver Bullets do try to regroup here, and the Knights of Blazing Sun are pretty much going to have to tank the damage for as long as they can, while the Silver Bullets are able to regroup and try and get as many shots in, because the Blackguard are going to be such a hard thing for the Empire to deal with here, and I just don't think they have enough tools to delay the Dark Elves from getting on top of the Silver Bullets. These Corsairs are going to be able to deal with the State Troops so quickly, and pretty much everything else, the Great Cannons just not going to be able to have the time needed to damage the Dark Elves forces for long enough. And yeah, now the Silver Bullets are going to be compromised, going to be wavering and running from the field. And at this point, Karl Franz and the Empire and the cavalry for the Empire just isn't going to be able to kill the Dark Elves. Blackguard of Nagarond, especially 2 units of them. One of them is at full health. No amount of cycle charging is really going to be able to get into them, because Blackguard do have charge defense against large foes, and there isn't really anything that the Empire can do, unfortunately, even though the balance power is still kind of even at this point, with the Dread Spears chasing off the Great Cannons away from their crew, and everything else is pretty much on the route. That is going to be it for the Empire. There's just pretty much nothing they can do at this point. Karl Franz, doesn't matter how good he is not going to be able to beat 2 fairly healthy Blackguards, and he will realize this and concede the fight So we'll take a little look at the after battle report here. So for the Empire's forces, Karl Franz, pretty abysmal on his value there. He was pretty much just chasing for most of the opening part of that match, unable to catch that Sorceress of Fire. And I think I'm just trying to think, the Great Cannons, they probably had to just be trying to kill the Blackguard from the get-go, realizing that was kind of the most dangerous foe on the field, instead of maybe trying to focus down. I'm not really sure what they were targeting. I know they did kill the Supreme Sorceress, but they took so long in doing that the Supreme Sorceress was able to get a ton of fireballs off a very nice burning head against the Sigmar Sons, who did pretty much nothing else for the rest of the fight, and was able to really eliminate the threat of a lot of the Great Cannon damage output. And the Pistoliers took a ton of damage as well from the Reaver Bolt Throwers. So I think definitely the target priority on the Empire side was probably one of the big cruxes for this fight. Not being able to deal with those Blackguard was probably the biggest thing, as one did get 1,800 in value, and the other one only got only 26 or 260. However, the problem with that is I think it was at full health at the end, so there really wasn't any way that the Empire could whittle that one down enough, and that was pretty much how that battle did end up turning out. But otherwise, it was a very long and kind of technical fight on both sides, though the Dark Elves do win out in the end, able to outlast and really shut down what they needed to, which would have been the Silver Bullets, the Great Cannons, Pistoliers as well, and they really didn't have to worry too much about the Knights of the Blazing Sun and the Empire Knights, and even Karl Franz. We had to be a little wary of him, but for the most part, they just ran him around the map for the full fight. Otherwise, that's going to be all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.